Hello Yu-Gi-Oh! Players, and welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! Business Casual. I am your host, the RJB0, and there are very few events in the year that prompt me to bust out the black suit and tie, and one of them is happening right now. Yes, it is the moment you have all been waiting for, the reason why like half of you guys have me in your YouTube newsfeed, which is the April 2014 Banlist According to Logic video series. Once again, as usual, we will have 3 videos in this video series, the first one being my meta-analysis and hits, then second we will have standalone cards that may get hit, and then finally cards that might find themselves climbing their way up the ban list. So before I get started, a lot of you guys are probably wondering why you should pay more attention to this video than maybe the ban list prediction above and below it on the list. I will give you guys a very quick background on this video series. So a long while back I noticed that a lot of ban list predictions are, well, predictable. Not in that they accurately predict the ban list, but in that when I go into a video I have an idea already of what kinds of things they're going to talk about, because a lot of these videos are based on butthurt and hate and not on actual ideas of what are likely to get hit. A lot of people just talk about cards that they think should get hit to be healthy for the game, or that they just get angry at, they think are too good or too degenerate or whatever. And a lot of those things are based on subjective personal opinions on certain cards. So what I do is I use my background in economics and my general nerdery for numbers in order to generate a ban list prediction that is based on reason and patterns. So in the past I've always used the OCG to actually create a quantitative meta-analysis, because the OCG has a really good set of coverage through things like Shriek, and I could actually go through and count the number of times each deck is topped, which I can't do in the OCG in the TCG, because the TCG's coverage kind of sucks. Honestly. Sorry to those people who do cover it. The people who do cover it very well. People like Cordero Spencer, etc. cover very well. However, for the most part, we don't get very much coverage. So I can't do that as much. However, after I look at this meta-analysis, what I do is I use my background in economics and my knowledge of marketing and general logic and patterns in order to predict what cards in the meta are going to get hit in the future. So even though I do not have the OCG meta-analysis, I can give you guys a list of things that we know. And there are 4 of those. Let me switch over to my handy-dandy Google Drive page. So let's go to things we know. First thing that we know, and this is the thing that people make the most mistakes surrounding, which is that Konami has always been and always will be a company, and what they do in a company is make money. Now, people make mistakes in both directions with this. The first direction, of course, is that people just ignore the fact that Konami is a company, and once again, they make predictions based on what's too good, what would be healthy for the game, things like that. Just their subjective idea of what is good to get hit for the players, and what they don't understand is that Konami is thinking ahead to marketing in the future. Now, people who know that Konami is a company often go to the other extreme, which is saying that Konami is the most degenerate cesspool of money grabbers on the face of the planet. They will do anything that it takes to squeeze every last penny out of us as players, and once again, that is also not true, because if Konami makes too many heinous decisions, people start quitting the game. People say, oh, RJ, that doesn't happen, but I will give you guys the example of March of 2012, in which Yu-Gi-Oh! Lost roughly 1/8 of its competitive players because Konami made that money grab and basically made the worst meta we've had, except for maybe, you know, the Dragon Rulers one, but that didn't come as a result of a ban list. That came as a result of them releasing the Dragon Rulers in the first place. So that is an example of why Konami doesn't make those degenerate money-grabbing decisions, because they need to keep their player base. So we know that in order to continue marketing and to continue making money, Konami has to find a balance between those two. The second thing we know is that Konami knows things that we don't know. Now let me translate. That means that Konami has an idea of what they're going to be marketing in the future. We don't know what all of those things are as players, so Konami is almost always going to make some decisions on the ban list that kind of mystify us. And we just kind of have to accept that and understand that we as players can't make totally accurate predictions. Part 3 of things that we don't know, or things that we do know, is actually unique to this particular format, which is that the next set that Konami is going to be marketing to the TCG is not selling well in the OCG. Primal Origin, despite being an amazing looking set, is not showing up on the OCG scene. What we are seeing are artifacts being splashed into certain decks, like parts artifacts, which is what what the OCG calls Chronomaly artifacts, where they splash in 3 artifact movement, which is their MST special summon from the deck thingy, and a bunch of artifact monsters. And then that is their artifact engine. Other than that, like the new Boojins aren't showing up in the OCG meta. If you go on Shriek, you're going to be hard-pressed to find any of the new Boojins on there, except maybe Amaterasu, and that's pretty much it. And most of those cards that are supporting old archetypes also aren't seeing much play. So this is a very unique situation. This is going to affect how Konami hits individual cards, and I'll get to that in the next video, but it's also going to affect how they hit the meta, which is that Konami really needs to throw the book at this particular meta in order to get Primal Origins to sell as well as they would like it to. So the final thing that we know about Konami, and this is the most helpful thing, is that Konami bans things in patterns. And this is really interesting. If you go to, and I, as the hugely mind-numbingly nerdy person I am, do have a spreadsheet of the last 8 formats, you can see patterns in what Konami hits first. Now, many of you guys who have seen this video series know how that goes. The first thing that Konami always hits are things that create expanded plays. These are things like Fishborg Blaster, Substitute, things that create expanded plays with limited risk. These cards have to create something like an OTK strategy or a lock or something that produces so much advantage that it is basically a zero risk play. These are things, once again, like Substitute, like, Fishborg Blaster, things like Super Rejuvenation is another example. There was another thing that got hit more recently. Return from the Different Dimension. Those are all examples of things that created extended plays that had to get hit. The second thing that Konami always seems to hit are things that special summon from the deck. These are cards, for example, like Wind Up Magician, or Wind Up Zen Mighty, or Inzektor Dragonfly, or Deep Sea Diva. These are all examples of cards that special summon from the deck. 1-for-1 even is a card that special summons from the deck that, even though it goes for a minus, it special summons from the deck and it was hit as a result. These are all cards that are usually very, very powerful, and they're very quick to get hit on the ban list. And in an equal level with those, Konami tends to hit cards that are already on the list. Now, this is one that usually comes out of nowhere for a lot of people. For instance, a lot of people were very surprised to see Zen Mighty get banned. And then to see Debris Dragon get hit back to 1 after only very recently coming back to 2. These are all examples of things that got hit that were already on the ban list in order to try and weaken decks that exist. And then finally, the last thing that Konami tends to hit are cards that add cards from the deck to the hand. These are usually the very powerful ones, things like Stratos, or once again, Super Rejuvenation. So those are the order in which Konami tends to hit cards. Now I'm going to move on to the meta-analysis and hits themselves. Now, knowing that Prio has not been selling very well, we have to look at all of the decks that have been consistently topping in the last few months, and those are 5 decks that I'm looking at. I know that there are other decks that a lot of people want to see hit, and I know that there are certain cards from certain decks that I will want to go back to talking about in the next video. And of course, if you guys comment below certain things that you guys need to get hit, or that you guys think needs to get hit, I will include that in the next video if I do think that it is a valid point. But these are just 5 decks that I think have objectively seen a lot of tops. They have topped basically every event and are the most likely to get hit before the next format is come. So the 5 decks that I will be talking about are first Hieratic Ruler, then Fire Fist, then Water, then Spellbooks, and finally Geargia. So let's start with Hieratic Ruler. There are 5 cards in Hieratic Rulers that I think are on the chopping block. 2 of them less so, 3 of them definitely more so, and then I have a couple top picks. So the 5 are Tefnuit Dragon Rulers, Hieratic Seal of Convocation, Hieratic Seal from the Ashes, and Atum. Now, Hieratic Seal of Convocation and Hieratic Seal from the Ashes don't follow the higher-up criteria. They follow either the adding from the deck to the hand, or in the case of Seal, do not meet any of the criteria that I talked about before. The 3 that do are, of course, Tefnuit, the Dragon Rulers, and Atum. Tefnuit and Atum are, in my opinion, the most likely ones to get hit, because they special summon from the deck once again. Rulers are also really high up there because, once again, they are already on the list, so they have the possibility of getting banned to weaken the deck. If the Rulers go away, then the deck isn't that much of a threat. However, Konami doesn't necessarily think like that, so let's go back to the patterns. I think that before the Rulers get hit, Tefnuit is likely to get hit because A, it creates the expanded plays in the deck, and B, it special summons from the deck. So those are 2 of the biggest criteria that are going to affect whether it gets hit. So I think Tefnuit is my top pick, and then the Rulers, and then Atum. So then Fire Fist has a very, very special situation, because +1 Fire Fist contains the best card of the format, which is Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Bear. Now, Bear doesn't really fit any of those top criteria, however, it is objectively the most likely card to get hit. Why? Well, because Wolfbark A doesn't do much unless you have an engine surrounding it. While Fire Kings may have a presence in the meta, if Wolfbark does not get hit, they already have not seen as many tops this format as a lot of people have predicted that they will, which means that they are not necessarily as much of a factor in Konami's decision. So Wolfbark does not meet any of those criteria that I talked about in my patterns, and it only really affects this deck in as much as Bear does. Tenki is on the list, however, Tenki is usable in Bujins and is in fact very important to Bujins. So if Tenki gets hit, that's going to hurt Bujin sales a little more. So it makes the most sense for Konami to limit Bear, because Bear will still be splashable if they limit it, but it will not be able to create a deck surrounding itself like Fire Fist has been in the recent past. So I think Bear is the most likely candidate to get hit in the Fire Fist deck. Let's move on to Water. Water is another one of the best decks of the format, and there are a lot of examples of things that could get hit from Water. First, we have Diva, which fulfills the special summon from the deck and being already on the ban list criteria. We have Sphere, which contains the special summon from the deck criteria. We have Teus, which sits on the add from deck to hand requirement. Then we've got Pike, which doesn't fit as many of the criteria, but is definitely the most popular card in the deck and is definitely necessary in order to make their more expanded plays. And then finally Lind, which once again special summons from the deck. I think the most likely 3 out of this are Sphere, Teus, and Lind. Now Teus is a little bit of an interesting concept for this, because while it doesn't fulfill any of the higher criteria, what it has been is hit on the OCG ban list before, and that's been very successful for the OCG in terms of getting rid of the mono mermail plays. If you hit the Teus, that does limit their plays to more of the rank 4 plays. They don't have as much access to rank 7, which makes Tidal less good in the deck, which inherently makes the deck much weaker overall. I think the most likely thing to get hit, though, is Sphere. Sphere is the most common card that can special summon from the deck. It's searchable through Megalo, which makes it a huge threat, and once again, it fulfills the criteria of, first off, creating expanded plays, because it gives you access to Pike, it gives you access to Turge, it gives you access to Megalo, all those cards which create the bigger plays, but it also special summons from the deck, and that's a really big thing. So I think Sphere is the highest on the list to get hit, and then the next is Teus, and there's a possible interchangeability with Lind and Sphere there, since they both do very similar things. Then comes Spellbooks, which I think are much less of a threat to Bujins and artifacts than the other decks. I think the only card in the Spellbook deck that really creates enough of a threat in order to put Spellbooks on the map is Fate. Now, Fate doesn't create an expanded play, however, what it does is it gives the deck teeth, and if you ban Fate, it does really hurt the deck. And one of the other advantages of Fate is that it is already on the list, which means that Konami is more likely to hit it just inherently than any other card that is on the same caliber as Fate. Now finally we go on to Geargia, which has three things on the chopping block in my opinion, which are Birdman, Armor, and Bure. Birdman because it starts off the extended play. So if you have the Birdman, if you have the Armor, you have the play. Armor because it's the big searcher of the deck, it's reusable, and then finally Bure because there is the possibility that Konami will be coming out with, of course, those new Geargia monsters in the near future, and the future for that deck will most likely be the Machina Geargia variant as opposed to the Karakuri variant, which means that Konami will want to limit the Karakuri variant enough to be able to sell those more without destroying the Geargia deck itself. So hitting Armor is less likely of a possibility, even though it does fulfill a couple of the criteria. I think Bure is the most highly likely one to get hit. Why? Well, because it starts the expanded play that creates the OTK for Geargia, but it also special summons from the deck. So those are two criteria that it meets that are higher up on the list of criteria, and it does hit the Karakuri Geargia deck without hitting the Geargia support that Konami may try to market in the near future. So those are the decks that I was looking at for the meta-analysis. I will talk about a couple of more things in the next video having to do with the meta, but the next video will be mostly devoted to individual cards that may serve as a threat to Konami's marketing in the future. Meanwhile, I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. If you didn't, let me know why in the comment section below. And of course, subscribe for more decks discussion, analysis, and general Yu-Gi-Oh! Shenanigans. And of course, let me know what you guys think of my predictions. Meanwhile, thank you guys for watching Yu-Gi-Oh! Business Casual. I'm your host, the RJB0, and I got a jet. See you guys.